Yo, guys, you know, a lot of people that are out here, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, doesn't matter, but they're trying to get their online business going. And in doing that, probably the key to that, other than just the technological stuff that gets them up, you need to figure out a way that you can get the people that's, say, listening to you to actually know you and then like you. And then what would follow would be to trust you. And the only way that somebody's going to go down that path is if you tell them a little bit about you. So that's what I'm doing today. I don't know how long it'll go, and it doesn't matter. It is what it is, right? So let's start a little bit way back. Now, I'm one of 3 kids, and I was the baby, and yes, I was spoiled. But when I was 11 years old, my sister was killed in a automobile accident, and that kind of screwed up the family to a degree. For example, let's just bring a memory back. Walking through the area of caskets as my mom and dad looked to see what kind of casket they want to get to bury my sister in. So I get to look at all these different caskets, and granted, I'm only 11 years old, guys, and this is like, say, 1965, when they didn't do a lot of things that they do now. And that being said, they usually, back then, had a viewing before the actual, well, we're Catholics, so they were going to do rosary one night. So before that, you get to actually view the person. And when we did that, my dad pulled me aside, and my mom was there with him, and they told me that she was not coming back, and I needed to do whatever I needed to do to believe that and understand that. They said that I could touch her, I could pinch her, I could poke her, I could do anything I wanted. Now, that's kind of freaky, because that's your sister laying there, and when you touch her, she's cold and she's stiff. Not a memory you necessarily want, but is what it is, and it happened. So let's fast forward a little bit. Graduated high school, started to go to college, but it seemed like college was more about partying than it was about learning anything, and it was kind of expensive. So I thought, screw it, I'm not gonna do this. So I found a job as a bookkeeper. And I stayed in that job, I don't know, 3-4 years. And that's where I met my first wife. Well, let's go back a little bit. Ended up working out fairly well, and we decided we were gonna get married, which we did. And we had a kid right off the bat. But she already had one, so there's 2 right off the bat. Then came 3, and then came 4. I didn't really want that many kids to begin with, but I don't want to get rid of them now. I mean, they are like my heart, if you will. But back then, I decided I'd go get cut, which is what they called it back then. And she was like 4 or 5 months pregnant. And I just thought if something happened, it happened. If it didn't, that's fine. There wouldn't be any more. So I was kind of naive, kind of stupid back then. And I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 months after the last one was born, she got pregnant again. And I thought, whoa, what's that about? So I went to the doctor, find out. Did it not work? Well, they told me it did work, and there's nothing there that would get her pregnant. So then I asked the stupid question of like, how could that be possible? Really? Well, like I said, naive, but you learn. And what I learned later is she was, maybe a good mother. I don't know. But she was not a good wife. And I needed to get rid of that. So we got a divorce. I started paying child support. Life went on. And at that time, actually, while I was married, I started playing the drums back when I was about 12 years old, maybe 13. And I just taught myself. And I learned how to listen to music, and it got to a point where if I could just hear the song once, I could play it. Wasn't that big a deal. So I kept practicing and practicing and practicing. And after we got married, there was a chance for me to actually get a nice paying job playing. So I started playing music. And I played music for the next 20 years in different places. And I spent, let's just say, 5 years at this one place. And that's where I met my wife. Thank God for that, too. She's an amazing woman. Anyway, let's move forward more. So later on, we got married. She had 2 kids, I had 3. So it was one hell of a big family. And next, we went into, looking for jobs, doing different things. I was a painter once before. I had a brother that was a union painter. He got me into that. I made really good money on that. And there was a time when I was playing a lot and working a lot. I was probably working somewhere in the neighborhood of about 16 to 18 hours a day. And then I would sleep and go right back and do it again and keep this up. Now, it's a lot of hours to work to build a relationship, and I had the kids at that time because my ex decided she wanted to move to Portland, Oregon. So my folks, angels as they were, offered to watch the kids for me. So that would be like the late 70s, early 80s. I was paying my folks $300 a week to watch my kids. And I told them that's just for them, food and whatever else they needed. But if they needed shoes or clothes or anything else, let me know and I would pay for that too. And that went on for a while. And then we got married, my wife and I. And we moved to a small town in Kansas because we wanted our kids to grow up in that area. Grow up like we did, where you could ride your bike and go to the pool, you could ride your bike and go to the store, those kind of things, Those are things that are kind of nice about small communities or small towns. That being said, we moved to a small town called Osage City in Kansas. And I became a cop. I became a lot of things. I'm like a jack of all trades and a master of none, but sometimes it's good to know many than it is to know one. Yeah, and it served my purpose because I could do a lot of things to get paid for. Now, I became a cop, which is mind-blowing to all the people that I used to play in a band with, because I used to, partake of drugs, let's just say that. In fact, there was a time that I went through from about, say, 18 to 30, where if you could snort it, smoke it, eat it, I'd do it. I didn't want to get into needles, don't like the whole concept of that, but anything else, I was up for it. And I'm sure I killed a few brain cells, but hey, maybe it was ones I didn't need in the first place. That's kind of what I thought. Maybe not a good idea, but you do it. Later on, when we got married and moved to this small town, I told my wife I would completely stop all dope, basically. And at that time, I was mainly just smoking. But, you know, I weaned myself off trying to smoke seeds and sticks. And those of you that's ever smoked knows exactly what I'm talking about. That being said, let's go on into Osage City living, where I became a cop. And I went back a few times, and I'd play in bands with other guys, and I'd show them like that commission card that you get as a police officer. And it was mind-blowing to them that I would be a cop. But I told them, you have to be convicted. If you're not convicted, it doesn't count. So, and I was never convicted of anything like that. So it was okay to be a cop. But it's not a fun place to be sometimes, because you work late at night, you're the only one out there, and the sheriff's department told me do not stop anyone driving a car, because the person that they would have to call out if I needed help was at home sleeping. So it was going to be a while. So they said, do not do it. And we didn't, but you could curb a lot of speeding if you would just sit in a median and take a nap or read a book or whatever, because they'll go by, see the cop car, and everybody slows down. You can watch the brake lights. It's kind of neat in a way. But anyway, it is fun driving with lights and sirens, though. That's kind of cool. But let's go on. While I was in a sheriff's, or a deputy to that degree, I started going through, I think I probably went through it before, but this is when it hit the hardest. And I was in depression pretty hard. And it was because the sheriff's department didn't pay a lot, and you only got paid once a month. And to give you some idea, in the mid 80s to early 90s, we were making like $30,000 as a family, both of us working. In fact, both of us working 2 jobs. And still, that's what we made. And it sucked. So, depression can kind of take its way with you. It kind of controls you, and it tells you got these inner voices that are telling you, you know, you'd be a lot better off. Your family would be a lot better off if you just weren't around here. And so I started thinking of ways that I could do it. I had my service. It wasn't a revolver, it was a semi-automatic. And trust me, I know what it's like to take that gun, and taste it. Taste the cold steel in your mouth as you debate on, do you want to pull the trigger or not? Guys, that's a low place in your life. And don't want to get too emotional here, because I'm so glad I didn't do it. But in that time, you know, as I tell these stories, it brings back emotions. But it is what it is, right? And I gradually came out of that. It was pretty crazy for my wife, because I actually confided in her that I'd done that. And that freaked her out, so now she's walking on eggshells thinking she's gonna freak me out and I'm gonna blow my head off. But she didn't know that I didn't want to blow my head off, because I didn't want the kids coming home from school finding me. So then my mind went to, where could I go? What could I do that they wouldn't find me and they wouldn't, you know. Like I said, guys, it's a tough time. But I ended up talking to some friends. It's helped me through it. And I tell you what, I'll put some kind of way that you can get a hold of me, maybe a text message or something that'll pop down, and you can shoot me a text if you're kind of like in that place, because I can help you. We can talk about it, because that's what it takes. And I know all about those frickin' voices in your head. They're not cool. So anyway, we got past that to a degree. It still comes back periodically, but not as bad as it ever was. Then all the kids graduated, went their separate ways. We had one that was in Phoenix, and one that was in Osage, 2 in Kansas City. So we decided we would move. And we were gonna move to Phoenix, Arizona. The only reason why was we have a child there. Why not? So it's kind of like the Beverly Hills. We loaded up the truck, headed to Arizona. I didn't worry about a job. I figured, what the hell? We sold the house. We had, I think it was like $35,000 to $40,000 cash money in the bank. So I said, we'll find a place to live and I'll find a place to work. So that's what we did. But before that, let me let you know, before we ended up with this whole going to Arizona, I worked for a company that was they made like household appliances there in town, and I was a supervisor of like, 6 different production lines. And then they sold to NAFTA, and NAFTA is a government kind of thing where they will pay for you to be retrained. And I thought this would be a good time to maybe go into computers. I didn't know anything about them. I thought, why not? So I started off with an electronics course. Then I went to a computer repair course, and then I went into network marketing. Network marketing. I went into being like the network of computers. And that involved routers and switches, that kind of thing. So before I graduated that class, I got certified with what they call a CCNA, which is a Cisco certification, which is good in the network industry, if that's what you're gonna do. So money was big in Phoenix, so I thought I can find a job. So I went down there, and within a month, actually I think it was more like 3 weeks, I found a job. I went on the interview. It was a $40,000 a year job, and I'm like freaking out because it's like, whoa, that's like 10 grand more than we were making back in that Osage City. And she's not working. How cool is that? So I went, did the interview. They loved me. I'm headed home. I get home, and the contracting company that I was going through to work there called me. And I went from 40,000 to 50,000. And I'm like freaking out. This is amazing. And then, so I go to work, start working there, and I find out all the guys that are in this little hub that I'm in are making 65,000, but I'm making 50. I became friends with the guy that was running that area, and he worked for the mother company that was there, if you will. I'm not going to get into the name of it. Anyway, he's like, dude, you should be making the same amount of money. I'm like, dude, I'm not. So he's like, let me make a call. So I go home. Next thing I know, I get a call. They raised me to 65,000. I am freaking over the top. And I tell you what, that's when I found out that, when you're happy and you're positive about things, depression does not exist in that world. So let's move a little bit farther forward. In less than 10 years, I was in 6 figures, loving life, doing what we wanted, when we wanted, where we wanted. It was great. And that went on for quite a while. And then I was there, and I was turning, before I got up into the 60s, I had guys asking me, so when are you going to retire? I mean, you got to have a lot of money. Like, well, I don't know. I don't want to retire yet, but I'm thinking maybe, somewhere between 62, 63, maybe 62 and a half. Maybe then. I don't know. Well, be careful what you wish for, because later on in my 60s, I was forced to retire. And they used the terminology that the contract that I was on, basically, they did away with it. So they did away with my job. And they didn't have really any jobs that I could do. Even though they had a person that was in India, and I could do everything they were doing. And he had a group of 5, and I could do it all. But they didn't want to hire me there. So they said, it is what it is. Sorry, we just don't have the jobs. So basically, I was forced to retire. Because let's be real, who's gonna hire you when you're freaking 62 years old? You know, when they can hire 2 or 3 that are like 20. And what I found out later is they did in fact hire 3 people to do what I was doing and paid them $45,000. Figure that out. Yeah, that was more than I was making at the time. But anyway, it is what it is. Things happen for a reason in your life. And when I started to figure out things about it, it was like, wow, this is like 62 and a half is when it happened. Yeah, how weird is that? And then you go through this emotional roller coaster because you think, you know, you're up for a while because you're feeling good, and then you're down because nobody really wants you. And what are you going to do for money? I mean, you could dip into your savings, but you know, why would you want to dip into your savings right now? Because at the point I had, well, let's just say a lot, but I didn't want to dwindle it down. So I had to find something to do. I ended up bouncing off my feet and going into what they call SEO, or search engine optimization. And I learned that. I paid $6,000 to learn this. But what I did do is within a year, I had that $6,000 back. So I kept it up and I did it quite a bit. But it is pretty hard when you're living in Phoenix, because Phoenix is a large market, and trying to move somebody up to the top page of Google takes time, just like a lot of things. I don't care what you do. I'm playing drums. It took time for me to learn how to be good. When I got into to be a network engineer, it took time to figure out how to be good at it. And it's just like everything else. So anyway, that was going on in my life. I was doing SEO, did it for 2 or 3 years, did well, but it came to a point where my wife's parents, who were, I don't know, in their 80s, but they were still getting around. They had like probably their house set on like an acre and a half maybe, and they mowed that anytime it needed to be mowed. They did all the maintenance around the house. They did everything in their 80s. I mean, that's freaking impressive. I hope that I'm there. Well, one thing led to another, and I told my wife, you know, we need to just sell this house and move back to Missouri, Platte City, if you will, because that's where they lived. And I want to let you, my folks are gone. My parents died. And so now it's just me and my brother, and we don't really talk a lot. He's kind of extremely negative, and I'm not. So I don't want to go there. I don't need the negativity in my life. So I'm meeting places, we talk, we go, we live, we buy. Yeah. Anyway, so I told her she needed to create some memories with her folks. So we sold the house. I mean, we'd done this time and time again. Sold the house, moved back. Now, hang on. I want to stop for a second and go back. Back when I first lost the job or was forced to retire, didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. Well, I was driving somewhere, and I actually remember exactly where, but I was going to, like Walmart is where I was going. But I took this back way and I went behind this grocery store called Albertsons so I could miss a few lights, right? But I'm kind of upset. And I'm just kind of going slow, thinking to myself. And out of the blue, and I cannot explain why, out of the blue, I heard a voice that said, things are gonna be okay. And so at the same time I hear that, and now I know all this is going on in here, but man, it feels like they're coming in here. And so I say, really? You think I'm gonna be okay? You realize where I'm at. I was forced into retirement. And the voice says, but didn't you ask? or want that before. You wanted to retire at 62 and a half. It just happened, didn't it? Things happen. And I'm like, and now I'm starting to get emotional, and I'm starting to I got tears running down my face as I'm talking to this voice. And the voice says, I have other plans for you. And I'm like, yeah, okay. What kind of plans? And he's like, the voice that comes in is like, that's not important. All you need to know is that you will have a better life than you're having now, or that you've ever had. And that started to make me feel good. And it was like this thing kind of touched me, if you will. And when it touched me, it's like I felt this love that came into my body. I mean, it was like I can't even hardly explain it, but it felt like you just loved everything. I loved myself. I loved people. I loved everything. And life was going to be amazing. And so I got out of that, but this all happened in like a 20-foot area that I'm driving. I mean, it's insane how fast that happened. But when I went into Walmart, I had a love for people. And I was looking at people, and I was like smiling and being, talkative with them. And they were coming back at me same way. And it's when I learned a lesson that, if you have love in your heart and you let it out into other people, you don't have to get crazy. Just smile and be happy to be with them, talking to them, whatever. They're good at coming back. And if they're, negative, you just go on. It's not a big deal. So I just wanted to relate that before I get back. Now we're back in Platte City, right? Living with her folks while we find a house. Well, long story short, we found a house, and started working on it. And we put in new floors. I've had the ability to do a lot of things, right? I can put in floors, I can do plumbing, electrical, pretty much everything that I can think of, concrete. So we brought the house up. Now we bought that house for, I think it was 150 some thousand, wasn't matter. And we built it up, and in 2 years, less than 2 years, we sold it for $197,000. And the reason we sold it is because we were going to move up the street. It was a brick home ranch. The one we were living in was a split level. And while we were there, my wife, Linda, broke her foot. And it was because of the stairs were so slick. But I did a good job. Put polyurethane on them. Probably shouldn't have done that, but it's good to know that now. Anyway, so we moved up to there. And I quit SEO sometime, maybe a year or two before that. And so I was thinking, what else am I going to do? Well, I did a lot of odd jobs. I painted for some people. I did some odd jobs with my son-in-law. He's doing some things. It all worked out. We were making money. Not what I was making back there, but we were making money. Well, then I got into affiliate marketing, which is an online business. And this online business, there is so many realms of this online business kind of thing. But a lot of people will start into it because there's people out here going, hey, you make $10,000 in like 2 weeks, maybe a month. Yeah, they're full of shit. That don't work. Because I know, I've been there and been in it a while, and I'm not making anywhere close to that. But just like everything else in my life and everything else in your life, it takes time, guys. It takes time to build it. But once you've got it built, it's on autopilot, and it will just go for you. And, the more I've done a lot of reading, a lot of studying on a lot of different things, from spiritual to motivation to mindset, all that kind of thing, and even depression. because like I said, it's not a fun place to be. And if you're there, I think I'll put a text that you can call, you can text me, a number you can text me down below this. And if you're there, text me and we'll talk. Okay, we'll go through this. I'm just out here to help you if I can, because I don't want you to go through what I went through, and I don't want you to leave your family. So that being said, in this world of affiliate marketing, it takes time. You have to do things, and that's where I started this video off with. And that is, if you want people to join you and follow you and be one of your team members, and I'm not the head of the team members, I'm a member of that same team doing the same stuff. It's not like I'm gonna be up here and managing stuff. I'm doing exactly the same things that I tell you to do. It works for me, I know it'll work for you, but you got to give it time and get it down. Okay, so that being said, where was I at? See, as you get older, you forget stuff. That just happens. Anyway, what I'm trying to get across is, at the beginning of this video, I talked about you want people to know who you are. And if they know who you are, you're gonna click with some of those people. And when you click with those people, you're gonna be liked by those people. And if chances are good, as they like you, you're gonna like them too. And next follows after like is trust. So they have to know you, like you, and trust you before they get into business with you. And I totally get that. So guys, I'm hoping this helps to let you know where I'm at. I'm screwed up. I did a lot of drugs, a lot of depression, gun in the head, a lot of bad things, but I've done some good things too. And I'm just out here, just like you, trying to make money. So, tell you what, if this goes with you, check out some of my other videos, because I'm not gonna get into the business side of this right now. I have plenty of videos out here that explain that. I just want you to know who I am. Later, and have an amazing day, a fantastic life, and just learn to love. Start here. You gotta love yourself first, right? Then it comes out and you learn to love everybody else. You don't learn it, it just happens. Somebody mystical, yeah, seems to overtake things. At least that's what I believe, because it does happen without any effort whatsoever. Later, guys. Bye.